So we're going to have one more presentation, then we're going to have a quick panel discussion where we can field questions. But Shannon Kashinsky is VP of HR. She's been in HR for many years and won Maine Best Places to Work for many years in a row. Was it 9? Yes. And so anyway, she's going to give the HR perspective on the similar subject matter. So Shannon, take it away.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. So I don't know about you, but I took a lot of notes from the previous presenter for myself, my career page, and my marketing person is going to hate me when I get back. Just saying. So how many people here do something with HR right now? Okay, pretty much all of you. Awesome, great. And the rest of you might not want to after we're done. So we're going to talk a little bit about being an employer of choice. Like he said, I've been very fortunate that I work for a company that has made the list for 9 years. We've also made the list of best credit unions to work for in the country. So that's really great. But I will say that it's a constant moving target. And if anybody that works in HR right now, you know that. And if I had the magic bullet, the golden ticket, yeah, you know, I wouldn't be working for the company. I'd be doing something else because it's changing. And there is no one magic thing that I'm going to be able to say to you today that's going to make everybody flock to you and make sure that you have no turnover. It's just not going to happen. So all we can do is be the best that we can be, and definitely attempt to be one of the employers of choice, of which there are a number of them in Maine. We're very fortunate to have a lot of great companies here. And as has already been said, we're competing against each other because there are only a limited number of amazingly great employees that we all want to employ. And we need to make sure that we're getting what we need. So the first thing I always want to say is I tend to be a realist, and I'm a realist with our staff in the HR organization. And I like to say, you know what, the first thing that you need to do is take a really hard, honest look at yourself and your company and what you're all about. And don't try to be something that you're not, because it's not going to work. So in this instance, you know, messy bun works for some and it doesn't work for others. So the first thing is, I like to say, you know, what is your culture? You know, step back and again, things that resonate and you can go back and say, oh, we need to look at that. That's really the takeaway of this presentation. So look at your culture and make an honest evaluation of what it is, because you're never going to fix what's broken if you're not willing to look at what it is and actually admit, you know what, this really isn't a good culture, or we really don't do that, or we could get better at this. Just because we're one of the best places to work doesn't mean, I had 3 pages of things to look at after the last survey. 3 pages of things where employees said that they weren't necessarily satisfied. Might have been 1 employee, it might have been 3 employees, but still, it doesn't take many dissatisfied employees to spread that around. So there's always room for improvement. What about your industry norms and perks? Again, you know, we go to the best places banquet and I hear, you know, our company is great because in the end of the day on Friday, we're serving beer. I work for a financial institution. We're not going to be serving beer at the end of the day on Friday. So I need to accept, as do you, what are some industry norms that you have to work within, and what are some industry perks that you can and you can't do? Definitely in the financial industry, there are some perks that I can't do that I used to be able to do when I was outside of Boston working for an advertising company. You know, I'd just be throwing those out there. I can't do it anymore, so I have to work within my norms. Who are you trying to attract? You need to step back and think, you know, what kind of person, what kind of skills, is there a generation that I need to get in here, a personality type that I need to get in here, and what are you doing to attract that kind of person? Because they're all different, and what they want is different, and don't be surprised if you get the wrong thing if that's who you're shooting to attract. What are your expectations when they get there? I always tell our hiring managers, you need to know exactly what good looks like. So you need to be able to have a list of your questions, and you need to be able to have an idea of what the best answer would look like. Because how do you make a judgment of what isn't good or what's sort of good if you don't have an idea of what the best answer would be for that? So you need to know what the expectations are, and what are your recognition avenues? What do you have for money? What can you do for perks at your company? What can't you do? How often can you do it? And the other thing is poll your staff. You currently have a staff, whether it's 1, whether it's 50. You have hopefully all ages, coming from all different backgrounds. Ask them, and not just necessarily the best places survey, though it's an amazing survey and it gives a very good, broad understanding of your staff. When that best survey came back a month or so ago, I've since sent out 7 other surveys to drill it down and say, okay, you said you were dissatisfied about this. Tell me more. What is it exactly? What is it that would make it better? What is it that's missing? You need to know your staff based on ages. Is it money that motivates them, time off incentives, all of the things that HR knows. There's a difference between advancement and learning. What is it that your staff is looking for? And what is it that your staff is looking for in all the different departments? You can't have one blanket incentive program generally if you have all different departments in your company. I can tell you, my sales staff, it's all about money. Money, money, money. Drive, drive, drive. And that's awesome. That's exactly what we hired for. They're salespersons. I expect them to be all about money and having greater reach and having bigger bonuses. If I told them I was going to give them a Dunkin' Donuts gift card, and they'd be like, oh, I don't even know if they'd take it. So we need to understand, how does the incentive, if we're going to give them, how does it even work for that person? Right down to the what if it is a Dunkin' Donut gift card? What if the person only drinks Starbucks? How much recognition was that worth? I don't even know the staff member well enough to know whether they drink coffee, whether they don't. So things to think about, goals and motivation. What kind of company culture are you? And we always used to think that, companies were either the carrot or the stick. We're either going to bribe them to do it, or we're going to punish them when they don't. And those were the 2 options. So think about what kind of company you are. Which one of these things do you tend to do? Because many of the companies in Maine are still very traditional, and we still sit in one of these pots. And think about how you have your recognition set up. Is it a bribe, or is it a stick? Is it working? What was the intended outcome that you wanted to happen with that recognition or that incentive? And if it's broken, then stop doing it. If it's not getting you the outcome that you were looking to achieve. Are you a company where everybody gets a trophy? The whole company's going to get a 2.5% raise. That's what it's going to be. Think about what that does. All of us went to high school. We all belonged in teams where we were the one that did all the work, and everybody else got the A with us, or we all got a D because the person forgot to do what they were supposed to do. So what kind of company do you want to be? Is it truly a pay-for-performance company? And if it is, then that would insinuate that some people aren't getting a raise, and some other people are. So you look at yourself and say, don't say that you're a pay-for-performance company if you're not. How are you deciding your compensation? Does everybody know where the bar is? Do all of your staff know what they need to do to achieve greatness in their position, the next position? Is there open dialogue going on about that? Because they're never going to reach it if there isn't a clear expectation of what that is. And do you recognize those that need to be led, fed, or enticed? Can you go right through your staff and make a column, and I mean this in the nicest of ways, and have all of their names and say, yep, this one needs to be led. This one needs to be fed. I need to have a carrot out there. This one needs to be enticed. This one has intrinsic motivation, and they're just gonna overachieve. And then are you able to look at that and say, all right, I can only have so many people that I need to lead or feed. I need to have some people that are making headway on their own. And am I going to be a company where I don't want to have anybody there that needs to be led or fed? How is it going to work if I have a company filled with people that are autonomous and all want to be the leader? Is that even going to work? So this is Maslow's, and it's kind of little, and we're going to go through each one of these, but we're going to quickly touch about this because it's the same kind of concept as far as making sure that your staff are trying to get to the very top of being like a self-actualized employee. So the first one I always like to talk about is compensation, and every one of us have seen a gazillion surveys that say, you know, employees leave because of their supervisor. True. And it isn't always about the money. True. However, if you're not paying your people adequately, nothing else matters. If they can't pay their bills, it doesn't matter how many Dunkin' Donuts gift cards they get. It doesn't matter if they get an extra day off. You need to at least hit the basic and look at that honestly and look at the market, the local market, look at your industry, and decide. Do we want to be below? Do we want to be at market? Or do we want to be above market? Generally, employers of choice are at least at market, if not striving to be above market. And in these days, with the unemployment so low, as much as you might not want to be above market, you might have to be above market. And that's always a little balancing act of what you could hire somebody to do a few years, even just a year ago, and what you need to give them for funds to do the same job now are grossly different if you want to attract talented staff. Do you have gender equity? I mean, look at yourself honestly. Are the men and women in your company getting paid equitably for doing the same job? And don't lay back on your rationale that he or she, you know, came in and negotiated something better. Just, is it fair across the line? Is everybody getting paid equitably? Are you transparent in your pay? Because I will say this, we went 100% transparent with our pay about maybe 6 years ago. And it was rough because it's hard for people to understand compensation programs. And it's hard for people to understand, you know, what's a merit increase and what about the whole time and seat thing and how does that all work? And I just want to get more money every year. I just want to get more money every year for doing the exact same job I did last year. So being transparent in your pay is a few hiccups that you have to get over, but once you go there, it makes everything much simpler. This is exactly how we pay people. This is exactly the compensation program that we use. This is exactly how it's graded, how it's weighted. If you do this, this is what it's going to look like. If you do this over here, this is what it's going to look like. This is what a minimum, a mid, and a max rate scale is. If those of you that have compensation packages or compensation programs that are grades where people stay within. So are you transparent? Because I will say this, if you're not transparent in your pay compensation programs or how you do it, your employees will make up their own stories. They'll sit back in their office and they'll make up their own story and it'll never be good. It'll never work well for you. And what about your competition? You know, are they stealing your people? Why? Is it about money? Is it about benefits? And as I said, it's always moving. Today, the employee might need to make an extra 50 cents an hour, but next month, the employee might need one more holiday off because something's happened in their family. So it's always a moving target as to, you know, what's going to keep your staff. So the next one, let's say you're paying everybody great. Everybody has completely met that level, and compensation is good, so now they can move to the next. They're not at home worried, you know, you're not paying me enough for what I'm doing. So the next one is, job security. And this whole concept of, is my job going to be gone tomorrow? That's part of job security. There's safety. There's that part of, job safety and work environment. And this whole concept of work-life balance. If there's anybody here that is still under the premise that, when you come to work, you're supposed to leave your personal life at home, I want to know how that's working, because I have yet to see it work. And that's not who we're hiring. I mean, when we hire somebody, we hire the whole person and everything that made them who they are. And that includes what's going on at home. Now, that doesn't mean that they can be spending their whole day worrying about home issues, but we need to recognize that people can be messy, and they come with their personal life with them. And we need to understand that it's not a balance. That would imply that I've got to choose between work or life. Or I have to say I work so that I can have a life. Either one of those is not going to make for a great employee, and it's not going to make for a great working environment. A work-life balance, for me, it's kind of all meshed together. We care about what's happening at your home, we care about what's happening here, and we need to find a way. Are you honest about your work environment during interviews? That's one thing, an employer of choice. What is your unwritten, I always love this because I ask staff this, we have anonymous surveys at my company, and I will ask them every year, what do you think are some of the unwritten policies of the company? And these are always great, because these are the things that are out there that people actually believe are the rules. They're not in anybody's handbook, but that's what they're living by. And those are the ones you need to know about. We all know what's in the handbook. We all know what the policies are and what the regs are. But what is going to come back and bite companies as far as being a great company to work for are all those unwritten things that your employees believe. They believe that's the rule. They believe that's how the company handles it. Those are the things that you need to attack. And ask them. You're going to have to find a way to ask them that they aren't fearful of coming forward. SurveyMonkey, free, 10 questions or less, gives you a link, pop it out there. There's no way to know who sent what answer, but it's going to give you some honest feedback about, all right, what are some of the rules that you think you're living by? You'll have an eye-opening experience of, wow, that's what employees think? That's what they think is going on here? Belonging. So do you hire for fit? Is it just about the skill? Is it also about, are they going to fit in with that manager? Are they going to fit in with those other people? Are you doing surveys? One of the best surveys we started doing a few years ago was around the 90-day mark. We started doing surveys with all of our new hires to specifically ask them, was the job ad adequate? Did it tell you what you need? Is the job what you thought it was going to be? Did we give you all the information you needed to know at the interview for this to be a good fit? Were you welcomed in? Did we get in touch with you? Was there a black hole after we said, we picked a start date? Did you feel like you were welcomed in? So there's all of these questions that we ask our new hires that have really not a lot to do with their actual job at hand, but it has to do with how well are we recruiting? And are we being honest with you about what you're going to hit when you get there? Because if we weren't, and you thought you were coming in for X and you came in for Y, we're either going to lose you or we're not going to get what we thought we were going to get, and we're going to wish we lost you. So ask them. Same thing with stay surveys. Why do you stay? A lot of us do exit interviews, which are beneficial to hear why people are leaving, but most often I want to hear why people are staying, because I want to hear what we're doing right. What do we need to keep perpetuating? Does your staff understand the importance of their role in your big picture? Do they understand what the company's doing and how their part plays into it? Do your people know each other, like as people? So that, people become disrespectful of other people in the company when they really know very little about them. It's really difficult to be mean or hurtful or be rude on the phone when you actually know that employee. Like, you know, they're married and they've got 2 kids, or you've seen pictures of their dog, or, you know, your company's doing something, so somehow you've made a connection with that employee. It's like the picture that he showed with the pup at the bar. It's like, who doesn't want to work? I want to work there. I want the dog and the bar at my job. But once you know something about your staff, it's very difficult to have some of those messy conversations that happen with employees when they actually see each other as people rather than, oh, that's so-and-so, the loan processor. You know, they're being a pain in my butt today because they want too much from me, versus, oh, I know her, she just got married, etc. Does everybody believe in your mission and vision? First, do you have one? Is it real? And do they know it? And do they believe in it? And if they don't, we're all kind of in the wrong spot. I mean, do they really believe in what they're doing? A lot of people that I've spoken with at our company, it's not that they don't believe in our vision, it's that they don't know their part. And so somebody has to sit down and let them know, well, this is your part, you know, and your part is important. Without your part, there's no other parts. So it's not that they don't believe, but people want to know, you know, how they fit in and how they're making a difference. The other question is, you know, would your people recommend you or your products if you weren't paying them to do so? If you weren't giving them a spiff to recommend a product, or if you weren't paying a referral bonus, would they still do it? And if the answer is no, you know, then that says it. The next tier that they need to get up to is Esteem, and this is a big one. A big one. And like I said, we've 9 years. One of our lowest scores still, 9 years in, is our employees saying that they're satisfied with how much their supervisor gives them positive recognition. Now, granted, I recognize that there are some generational things there. Can't constantly be saying, good job, good job, good job, good job. But there also has to be some weight there as well. And we as well need to look at how are their senior leaders and the people up recognizing staff. Do they know their names? Do they know anything about them? Are they walking around? Are they saying, you know, I really appreciate, you know, the job you did today? It doesn't take a lot. Does recognition only come after company gains? Meaning the only time you hear great job is, here's our financials for the year, everybody's getting a bonus. So I'm only going to tell you you did great if the company did great. And that's the only time people hear what a great job they're doing versus daily, weekly. Don't sweat, but notice the small stuff. A lot of our staff say, you know, they just want to hear the thank you. Staff usually will say, you know, nobody has a problem bringing to my attention when there's something I need to improve on. Of course, you know, that's called critical feedback. That's what we're there for. But if we actually took a scale and you asked your supervisors to take a scale and say, you know what, I want you to just make a little check mark this week. Just pick a week, pick a day. Make a check mark. Every time you brought something to someone's attention that they need to fix, improve, could do better, and I don't even mean in a critical feedback, this is a written warning type of way. Just any kind of get better kind of comment. You need to get better kind of comment. And then on the other side, make a little tick for every time you made any kind of comment that was a thank you, great job, really appreciate you. How many of your supervisors are even going to come even? I would say none. They should be at least even. Preferably, if your culture is going to be an employer of choice culture, it actually is going to be weighted a little bit more on the positive versus these are all the things you got to fix scale. But my guess is we're this way. And we need to, again, go back to the top, which is, you know, look at yourself honestly. It doesn't mean you're bad at your jobs. It doesn't mean your supervisors are bad at their jobs. you already have a great company. It's not about great companies. If you didn't have a great company, you wouldn't be here trying to get better. But that's what we're all trying to do, is get better at what we do. And again, the last one is, the spiff that matches the employee. The first year at the credit union that I was there, again, it was the first time I was limited with the kinds of spiffs we could give. And I learned very quickly that, I couldn't just go out and buy 15 Dunkin' Donuts cards. As great as that was to give them to all the supervisors and say, here, give these out whenever someone's doing something great, it didn't take very long before I immediately started getting people back saying, yeah, well, I don't drink Dunkin' Donuts. So you need to make sure that your spiff, whatever it is, one, get your net result, and two, matches the employee. What is it that they like? And then the last one, hopefully, if you've been able to get up each one of those tiers, this is what it would look like if we were all like at this supreme place of an employer of choice. So we would have employees who are doing, the best at what they do. So our staff would be spending a day of doing what they want to do, not what they should do. I have to do this. I should do that. Listen to that when you go back to your office. When staff are just communicating in general, how many I shoulds, I have to. Those are like, Debbie Downer kind of words, versus I get to, or I'm excited about, or I'd like to, or I want to. Most of the time, it's the I have to, someone's forcing me to do this kind of thing. Employees would be reaching their maximum potential. We'd be cross-training for passion. That's a difficult thing for small companies, mine included. We have these conversations all the time. You can look at your staff and know that person really would be better over here. But now you have to have a hard conversation and actually tell them, your skills and ability actually belong over here, and I'm going to move you over there, versus letting somebody wallow in a place that doesn't actually match their ability. Work is, we already talked about that one. Employees are trusted and empowered. Think about all of the employees in your company. Are they all entrusted to make decisions, and at what level? That's an important thing for employees, to feel like we trust them to make a decision. And it doesn't have to be, where we're going to open our next branch. They don't have to have that level of decision making. But there must be something in their job capacity that we can entrust them to make a decision on. Nothing gives employees more value and feeling good about themselves and their job when they get to give back. Did they get to give awards to other staff? Did they get to give things to your members? An example, our employees love it when our members call and have an issue with some kind of a fee or something that happens. And they all have the autonomy to say, I'm going to waive that, I'm going to give you this much. Now, they all don't have, an immeasurable budget that they can just start giving out money, but they are all empowered to give back a certain amount. And that's a wonderful feeling, to be able to say to a member, absolutely, I can stop that fee. As a matter of fact, let me credit this, this, and this. And they feel, and they are empowered, to make a difference in someone's life that day. And make sure that your employees are challenged but not drowning. I don't know, we are a small company. We always have folks say, there's limited room for advancement. I always take the HR perspective that, that depends on what you consider advancement. You can always learn, you can always have more education. But I understand they're looking for, a bigger, better job, a bigger, better title. So that's a hard one for us too. And trying to make sure that there's a balance with our staff where there's always a challenge, that, mediocre isn't, acceptable, that we always need to be looking to grow. Generally, human nature is that we always want to advance and we want to grow, but we don't want to be drowning. We don't want the expectation to be so overwhelming. So these are the things that we, as a best place to work, are always shooting to achieve. Again, this is more about looking at your company, looking at your department, and actually doing that original hard look at yourself and saying, all right, we're doing really good at this right here, but we need to start looking at these things over here. One thing at a time. I was with a media presentation this morning. I would love to go back to my company and do 20 things next year. That would be amazing. The reality is, I'm going to pick one. I'm going to pick one of the ideas that he presented this morning and say, you know what, next year, we're going to start doing this. Because that will be one step better to being an employer of choice and keeping that title than I was last year. And you know, that's the way that we've done it, and I hope there's something that you saw here that they'll be able to take back and say, you know, I really need to look at this. How are we doing this? And if we could do it different, it might make a difference to our culture and our employees. And that's it.